Today was another pretty good workout. I worked on doing front squats again, just bumping it up to 150 today to just kind of further build on this. I'm pretty happy with how they're feeling. Um, I'm staying pretty consistently upright. Again, kind of following the cue that my buddy gave me, saying that to really get the good posture for it, you want to picture that you're pooping. So it helps kind of control the bottom position while keeping your upper body pretty upright in comparison to everything else. Um, it is getting more comfortable. I just need to kind of build up. I think what the one thing that's kind of holding me back on them in terms of positioning is just keeping my arms up. I'm not too used to having them up that high really with anything. I don't have. As I'm saying this right now, I'm kind of moving my right arm around. I don't have like the best flexion in the world, so I need to kind of work on the flexibility there to be able to better accommodate the position in the front squat. Plus, I should probably maybe kind of practice that in addition to doing some split jerks or some squat jerks, just to kind of get used to exactly where my arms need to be, so that way they're better situated. So maybe at some point I should work on some of the Olympic lifts just to practice those and solidify that positioning to make everything a little bit easier overall. But yeah, that's neither here nor there right now. This is just kind of something for fun to, well, not necessarily for fun. It has a purpose. I'm trying to reinforce an upright position in my squats, specifically try to hopefully transfer this over to the back squat, which it should. I am getting some better core activation at 150 pounds here than I was at 270 pounds on a back squat. So that's really interesting. Which also kind of goes to show that I really was just kind of muscling up those back squats without any sort of need for a stronger core position, which is also kind of interesting because I was doing all of the squats and not having any issue with like lower back soreness or anything. So it was just purely in the legs, with some core activation, but not enough to really kind of force me to have to work for it until I got over that 270 mark. I don't know when I'll switch back over to back squatting. Maybe once I hit 200 kilo or 200 kilos, 100 kilos or something in the front squats, so 220, somewhere around there. Maybe 2 plates at 225. And just kind of keep it casual there. So it'll be a while until I build up to that. Maybe a couple months. Just kind of going by how I typically program squats and all that. As for deadlifts, did high handle on the 4-inch blocks, and these moved pretty well. It moved about as well as it did on Tuesday. The one thing I did notice towards the end is that my left lat towards like the lower insertion point in the lower back was getting a little sore. And I could feel a little bit of strain in it. So I was monitoring that very carefully as I was going through and doing these, just because I don't want to overwork that muscle and kind of damage, well, not so much damage, but lose the positive effect you would get from doing a deadlift in that, to where you're no longer utilizing all of your lats, or it induces a poor position in the lift, which is going to predispose you to being have a higher likelihood of being injured. So just something to kind of keep in mind is that auto-regulation is probably one of the most important things you can do with your warm-up, not your warm-ups, your exercises, and your what you're planning on doing per day or as you're going through it. Just because if you feel like you're at a point to where things are just getting tiring, but you still have more on the docket, it's probably best just to call it good and not really kind of force your way through it at times, because you don't want to make sacrifices in technique which generally protect your body from injury. It's just something you really need to kind of be aware of, how your body's going to respond to that and how you can afford to move in these situations. Thankfully, it was just kind of like a little twinge where it was tired, not so much as just like being super sore or feeling like it was being pulled. It's just one of those, oh yeah, I definitely worked that the other day, so this is definitely going to kind of feel it, especially because I'm really trying to push these block pulls and see where I can go with them. I ended up doing like 3 minutes or 2 minutes of rest all the way up to 365, and I did 3 minutes between 365, 405, and 440, and I just plugged in 5 minutes of rest between 440 and 475 to 500, 525, and 550. So took some time to really kind of relax that position. I did do 475 and 500 raw, which was pretty easy. My grip's feeling pretty good. I think I could probably do 525 raw at this point, but I might have to kind of change the rep structure going up to it to really kind of test that. And I am feeling fairly confident looking at how these weights are moving that I can probably pull 475 at very least maybe 460, 465 from the floor with a trap bar. So I might try that on Saturday depending on how my lat feels. If not, I'll just do something else and just kind of take it easy on that for the day, so that way I don't strain it too much. Because having to take time off from straining it would probably be more detrimental than just taking a day off of it in the first place to let it rest. Because one's giving yourself time off to recover, and the other is being forced to take time off to recover, and that's always going to be kind of harder to do. This 525 felt pretty good in the moment and moved all right once I got it up. Took a second to really kind of get that weight moving, so that's definitely not anywhere close to being able to pull it off the floor, just because that extra 4 inches adds so much more work to this lift. The 550, I channeled that sort of mindset that I had on Tuesday where I'm just going to walk over, strap up, pull the weight, no hesitation on that. And I've already pulled it once. Again, this is a slightly lower position, I think by like 1.5 inches or so, but it's on the higher handle, so your leverages are different, and this makes it a little bit easier to pull. Nice thing is that compared to last week, I didn't almost pass out between the 525 and the 550 with the first time I did 525 last week. That one definitely took a lot of work out of me to get that going, but it wasn't an RPE 10. That was probably only like an 8 or a 9, so I definitely felt like I had more in me. So I threw on 565. That kind of felt all right compared to where I was at. Just another 15 pounds, pretty minimal at this weight. I probably could have attempted to put on a little bit more or a little bit less than that and probably gotten it. Actually, one thing I just remembered, the 550 actually wasn't 550. It was 552 and a half. Looking back on it, I had a 5 pound weight on the left hand side and a 2.5 pound weight on the right hand side. I didn't notice it until I was taking the weight off. So I guess it's a new PR for all time amount weight lifted on the trap bar. But touching back on these with the 565s, I feel like I got close to pulling it, and I might have just lifted so much at this point. I'd already been working out for almost an hour, expended a lot of energy that I probably kind of burned myself out from being able to pull it. So I might try it. I'm definitely going to try it again next week, as long as my back's feeling okay in terms of like no tightness or soreness in the lats. And maybe just take a shorter route up to it. So I'll have to kind of plan that out a little bit differently to pull. But if I can get 565 here, especially with 4 inches on, off the ground on these blocks, I'm feeling pretty confident in my ability to pull more than 450 off the floor, just because 100 pounds in this situation, or 150 pounds over my max, is a pretty, that's about 25% of my 1 rep max over, or 25% over the 1 rep max here, which is typically a pretty good proportion for block pulls. I think usually with a block pull, you'll get anywhere between 10 to 20% over your 1 rep max, depending on the height of the block pull. Obviously, the higher that you go, the easier it will be to add more and more weight. But, it still makes a significant difference because you're helping save just bits and pieces of the process of the lift that can be some of the sticking points. And right now my sticking point is off the floor, whereas compared to my hips and my quads, I have so much power in those muscle groups that I can just muscle that weight up without having to worry about trying to break it. Probably one thing that's holding me back on being able to break the weight as much is just upper back strength. So working on the lats and the traps, be able to just kind of brace against that weight and almost pull it up entirely using those just to get it off the floor. And that is one thing I was practicing consistently doing the 5x5 is breaking that weight, holding it for about half a second to a second, and then following through with the rest of the lift. Not really focusing on that as much right now because I'm doing the 1 rep maxes, but once I go back doing the 5x5s, definitely going to focus on doing that to be able to just move more weight and move it more consistently, especially off the floor. I've considered doing deficit deadlifts with the trap bar, but I don't know how beneficial that would be, but it definitely does help. I feel like my speed off the floor is a lot faster with a deadlift bar now, since I've been focusing on the deficit deadlifts, and my position is better overall too. So I don't know. There's some things to think about and play with, and I'll see what I come up with.